Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unboxed. Today is Church Stuff Sunday, and our question for today is, I was disfellowshipped from church as a teenager. Should I ever go back? Stay tuned as we unbox the answer to that question. I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach, and welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Davis. So glad to have you with us. Before we get started, do me a huge favor. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Yes, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Go down to the description so that you can find ways that you can support or partner with Unboxed. And last but not least, if you have a question like the one that Stacy is going to ask us today, if you have a question, make sure that you email it to us. Our email address is on the screen, or of course, you can go to our website and submit it through there as well. All right, let's go straight into this. This is Church Stuff Sunday, where we attempt to look at various church relationship issues and answer them right here on Unbox, because again, we're unboxing family relationships, marital relationships, you name it. We unbox all those type of relationship challenges, and we try to help you to live your fullest life. Here we go. So Stacy asked this question. She says, I got pregnant 30 years ago when I was 16 years old, and I was disfellowshipped from the church. The church had a huge meeting, and they talked about me to my face. I am still hurt and angry at how they handled the situation. I stopped going to that church and only go to any church every now and then. Since COVID, I've been feeling like I should go back to church on a more regular basis, but I'm still very reluctant. What should I do? Well, let me pause here for a second. Stacy, it appears that, this thing may not have been handled correctly. I wasn't there. And so I'm really sorry for your experience. And I regret that you at 16 years old had to undergo this ordeal. But just for those who are watching who may not necessarily have a church background, let me explain to them what disfellowshipping is. There are certain, I guess you can say, standards of conduct, and one of them is engaging in sexual immorality. So adultery, fornication, etc. And if you do these things, then your name is removed from the church roll. And I do want you to understand that this doesn't mean that you are kicked out of the church and you can't attend the church anymore. It just simply means that your name is that you're no longer an official member of that congregation, and you cannot hold any church offices within that congregation until you take Bible studies and are rebaptized. So that is the process known as being disfellowshipped. The reason that they actually talked about the situation in your face is because part of the process of disfellowshipping is that any accusations or charges that are brought against a person, just like in the U.S. court, you have the right to be there, because somebody could lie on you and say, that you're pregnant, and say that you weren't, or that, that you were engaged in fornication, but that wasn't true. You have the right to stand up and say, no, they're lying. That's not what happened. That's not true. And I contest this. So you have the right to be there. And there's actually there's a process that's supposed to go on that's to ensure that you are not mistreated in this disfellowshipping. Now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of churches don't follow that process. And I've talked to several people, and they've been hurt and they have been scarred. I pastored for 22 years. I was a pastor in the Seventh-day Adventist denomination. I'm still a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm just no longer employed by the denomination. With that being said, I have had situations where teenage girls have got pregnant, and I believe that I had a spiritual responsibility to interact with them. Now, I will share this with you. I have not disfellowshipped any teenage girls for getting pregnant the entire time that I was a pastor, and I only had to do one disfellowshipping the entire time that I was a pastor. And I'm very proud of that. And it wasn't a teenage girl. It was a whole different situation that I won't get into today. But I do want to talk about the fact that, as you mentioned, COVID is kind of pulling you and leading you to rethink your need for spiritual community, because you can study the Bible on your own. You can go online and listen to sermons, but there really is something that helps us to grow in spiritual community. The reality is we grow spiritually and we grow emotionally when we're in relationship with others. I'm going to say that again. We grow spiritually and we grow emotionally when we're in relationship with others. So one of the things that we teach here at Unboxed is the importance of not cutting off. And this kind of seems what you've been doing, Stacy, is kind of cutting off. You had a very hurtful experience. And I'm not here to justify or to condone how you were treated at 16 years old, at such a tender age, already having to now face life with a new child. This thing should have been handled with such tenderness and compassion and care. And what the church should have done was had a meeting to figure out how they were going to pool their resources to help a 16-year-old girl be successful in raising this child, how they were going to make sure that you graduated high school, that you graduated college, and that your child had everything that it needed to be successful. That's the kind of church meeting that they should have had. And I'm sorry that it didn't go that way. But again, we need this spiritual community, and cut off does not help us. Cutting off and saying, I'm through, I'm done, it just stunts our ability to grow. It stunts our ability to be able to mature and to reach our full potential. You were 16 years old, and I can tell you right now, I was not at a place emotionally mature where I could have even sat there in the meeting. I probably would have said some profanities and stormed out of the building. The fact that you were able to sit there and endure it really does testify to your level of maturity, even at the age of 16. And I'm proud of you, even though I regret that you had to have that experience. But let's talk about the heart of the matter now. The most important question, now that we've done that background, the most important question that you have the opportunity to answer is this right here. Since you've experienced the pain and the hurt of being harshly treated by a spiritual community, and I'm just going to drop off the word spiritual and say community. Since you've been through this, you've experienced, you know what it's like to be harshly treated by a community. The $1 million question is, what type of person are you going to be to those who are experiencing hurt and disappointment at the hands of spiritual community? And this is why it is so important for you to be a part of spiritual community, because if only the abusers are present, and I'm using the word abuse, and I know it's a pretty hard word, but I'm using the word abuse because when you take a 16-year-old and subject him to that kind of a process, that is a form of emotional abuse. So, if you have a church that is full of only two types of people, the abusers and the silent assenters, they give their assent through silence. If that's all that you have, and you don't have anyone there that is mature enough to speak up and to say, no, this is not how it's supposed to be done. I am not going to allow this to take place. I am going to speak up. I am going to stand up. I'm going to voice my opinion. Then what happens is the entire system will begin to manage and to regulate itself based on the most immature people in the group, which are the ones who will bring a 16-year-old to a meeting, wag fingers in their face, and then tell them you're no longer a part of our fellowship. And so unless there's someone like you, and so I'm doing the math now, you got pregnant at 16, that's 30 years ago, so you're 46 years old and you're in your mid-40s, then unless someone like you that has been through that experience and that has the emotional maturity to understand the type of hurt and pain that has, then you're going to have congregations that are being run, governed, and managed by the most immature people, by the most spiritually inept. Your voice is very much needed. They need someone that will come in there and that will be a part of the fellowship who operates by guiding principles. And so let me talk to you about what a guiding principle is. I got a little slide I'm going to put up here on the screen that shows you and talks about what a guiding principle is. Guiding principles is one's internal clarity regarding his or her own path forward in response to any given context or situation. Now, I know that sounds very clinical. I'm going to put that back up there and keep it up there for just another second. Guiding principles is your internal clarity. I know that this is how I want to be, how I want to treat people, how I want to direct myself as I move forward, no matter what the context or what the situation is. Thank you so much. What the context or the situation is. So the every congregation, every community, whether it's a church, whether it's an organization, whether it's a family, whether it's a marriage, every type of relationship community needs someone who is emotionally mature, someone who operates not by their emotional whims. And we get everybody into a room, and now all of the emotions are flying, and it's wrong. We're not going to have young people screwing around, getting pregnant. That's going to mess up our church's name, and people in the community going to think worse of us. And you got all of this emotions going on. You need someone there that is calm, non-anxious, and that lives by a set of guiding principles. And Stacy, that's you. I want to appeal to you, Stacy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, I don't know if you're even in the same city and state as the church that you were disfellowshipped from. But I would strongly encourage you to become part of a spiritual community for your spiritual growth, for your own edification, but also so that at least one spiritual community can have someone who has made up their minds that they're going to operate by a set of guiding principles. There are young people, as I close, there are young people who are abused in spiritual communities. And I'm talking about they are emotionally abused, physically abused, and sexually abused. It's been all over the news. There are young people who are abused in spiritual community. And this is an awesome opportunity for you to live out your guiding principles in real life, and for you to be a means whereby you speak truth to power and you protect the most vulnerable that are among us. So, how are you going to treat the anxious abusers? Get into that community, guiding principle. Stacy, how are you going to treat the anxious abuser as well as the fearful abused? Spiritual community needs people like you. This, and I'm glad that COVID brought this to your attention, this is not the time for mature people, thoughtful people, calm, non-anxious people to retreat. Matter of fact, that's not what a mature, calm, non-anxious person will do. They're not going to retreat. They're not going to say, I'm done with it, I'm leaving. This is the time for you to step forward and to say, I'll never forget when the Penn State scandal broke out with the little boys that were being sexually abused. I'll never forget that coward of a coach who he was an assistant coach. He walks into the bathroom and he hears the little boy being sexually abused. The sounds are obvious that this little boy is being tortured by this vile, vulgar head coach of Penn State. And what does he do? Rather than go in there and jack that man up, rather than immediately report him, he turns around like a coward and leaves that little boy to continue to be subjected to the most horrific ordeals that any human being should ever have to experience, because he wasn't strong enough. He didn't have enough guiding principles. And communities need people who are strong and who have guiding principles. If not, you'll have an entire university like Penn State that organizes itself to accommodate the most immature, abusive, ignorant, vile people. I not only encourage you, Stacey, but I encourage everyone who is watching this broadcast to develop your set of guiding principles, to be clear about who you are and to live them out, especially in the face of all the injustices that are going on in our world today. What better place for the church than to be filled with people who are determined to be strong, to be principled, and to make an impact in their corner of the world. A little song we used to sing was "Brighten the corner where you are. Someone far from harbor, you may guide across the bar if you brighten the corner where you are." I hope that this helps you, Stacey, and I hope that this helps someone else as well. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and follow us as we continue to unbox the power and the potential of all relationships. Until the next time, have a wonderful evening.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.